They think silence is weakness. They look at the one who speaks less, reacts less, and assumes he has nothing to offer. They confuse calmness with cowardice, stillness with submission, and quiet with emptiness. But what they don't see is the storm behind those eyes. They don't realize that the most dangerous person in the room is often the one who said the least. Because power doesn't always announce itself. Real power doesn't need to. It doesn't rush to be seen. It doesn't beg to be heard. It observes. It calculates. It understands. And when the time is right, it strikes. Not with noise, but with precision. You see, we live in a world that glorifies noise. The louder you are, the more attention you get. The more you post, the more seen you feel. But attention is not power, visibility is not mastery, and volume is not strength. True strength, real, unshakable, undeniable strength, is silent. It's the kind that doesn't need validation because it already knows. It doesn't need applause because it's already certain. The quiet person in the room is not detached. They are tuned in. They are absorbing everything. The energy, the motives, the insecurities, the lies behind the smiles, the fear behind the arrogance. They see it all without saying a word. And while everyone else is busy proving themselves, they are building a map, a mental layout of every weakness in the room. Because the quiet person knows the loudest one is usually the most fragile. The most reactive is often the least in control. And the person who needs to dominate every conversation is usually the one who hasn't mastered their own mind. So the quiet one waits. They listen, they watch, they learn. They know that true power is not in how fast you speak. It's in how deep you think. It's not in how often you move, but in how intentional every movement becomes. The quiet person isn't playing small, they're playing long, and when they move, it's game over. You won't see it coming. Because while you were measuring noise, they were mastering nuance. While you were trying to be heard, they were becoming undeniable. And that's what makes them dangerous, not because they seek to harm, but because they can't be manipulated. They can't be baited into useless conflict. They can't be lured by flattery or provoked by ego. Their silence isn't weakness. It's their weapon. It's how they filter what matters from what's noise. It's how they protect their energy from distraction. It's how they stay rooted when everyone else is chasing validation. Because the quiet person understands something most don't. The real war is internal. The battlefield isn't out there, it's within. And if you mastered your mind, no one else can control you. That's why they don't argue. They let the fool expose himself. They don't chase, they attract. They don't fight for attention. They own the space with presence. Because silence commands what noise tries to beg for respect. And let me tell you, when the quiet person finally speaks, people listen. Not because they yell, not because they demand, but because their words carry weight. Every sentence is earned. Every pause is powerful. Every insight cuts deeper than 1,000 empty opinions. They speak when it's time to change the direction of the room. When truth needs a voice that can't be shaken, and when they do, everything stops. Because now you realize the person you overlooked is the one you should have feared, the one who didn't react to your insults, the one who didn't flinch at your games, the one who kept walking when you tried to trigger them. That was the one with the real control, the one with discipline, the one with depth, the one with a mind that's 10 steps ahead, the one who doesn't seek power because they already are it. The quiet person doesn't need to prove anything. They let their life speak. They let their present speak. They let results speak. And when they're done watching, when they decide it's time, you'll know, because their silence will become action, and their action will become impact, and their impact, it won't be loud. It will be permanent. The quiet ones don't walk into a room needing to be noticed. They don't light up the place with noise or theatrics. They enter like a shadow, calm, effortless, composed. And yet, without saying a single word, they shift the energy, because presence doesn't come from volume. It comes from alignment. They know who they are. They've sat in silence long enough to face every version of themselves, the angry, the afraid, the broken, the resilient. And in that silence, they built clarity. They don't operate from reaction. They operate from intention. While others seek to be understood, they focus on understanding. While others fight to be heard, they master the art of listening, because they know that the most dangerous weapon is not a sharp tongue, but a sharp mind. The quiet person doesn't broadcast their pain. They alchemize it. They don't rant about betrayal. They remember. They don't attack their enemies. They outgrow them. They don't need to say, "I'll show you." They're too busy doing it. They move in silence. And then one day, everything changes. You see them again, and they're unrecognizable, elevated, evolved, untouchable, because while everyone else was busy playing roles, they were becoming the real thing. You see, most people use noise to distract from their own emptiness. They surround themselves with chaos, so they never have to face the quiet of their own soul. But the silent ones, they've lived there. They've faced the storm inside, and they came out sharpened. They don't need to dominate the room, because they've already mastered the room within. That's why they don't chase approval. They don't need to be the favorite. They don't bend themselves to fit in, because they've already found peace in standing alone. And that terrifies people, because someone who doesn't need your validation can't be controlled. Someone who isn't afraid to walk away holds all the power. The quiet person isn't hiding. They're studying. And when they move with such precision that it seems effortless. But it's not. It's the result of observation, strategy, and self-control. It's the result of years of refining their instincts, strengthening their intuition, and learning when to act and when to wait. Because silence isn't just absence. It's a decision, a form of intelligence, a refusal to waste energy on what doesn't matter. And in a world that's constantly screaming for attention, the ability to remain silent is rare. It's powerful. It's disruptive. It unsettles people, because it forces them to face their own noise, their own insecurities, their own discomfort with stillness. And the quiet person, they sit in that stillness like a throne. They don't fear it. They rule it. They're not interested in being loud. They're interested in being effective. Every step they take is rooted. Every word they choose is deliberate. Every action is calculated not from ego, but from understanding. That's why they can walk away from drama without a word. That's why they can end a toxic relationship without burning it down. That's why they can let people underestimate them, because they don't need to explain themselves to those who won't understand anyway. Their strength is in the restraint, the choice not to react, the decision to wait, the power to observe long enough to see what others miss. The loud may dominate the moment, but the quiet dominate the outcome, because They're not looking to win an argument. They're focused on winning the war. They're not trying to be right. They're trying to be effective. And sometimes the most effective move is no move at all. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing, do nothing, give nothing. Let them show who they are while you become who they're not ready for. The quiet person doesn't speak until it's time to say something that ends the conversation. They don't act until it's time to shift the whole dynamic. They don't need to fight for attention because when they're ready, everything shifts, not because they forced it, but because they prepared for it. That's what makes them dangerous. Not that they want control, but that they've already mastered self-control. And in a world full of chaos, that kind of discipline is unstoppable. They've been watching silently, while others boast, while others flex, while others parade their opinions and pretend it's wisdom. The quiet one watches. They pick up the tones others miss. They read what's between the lines. They notice the flicker in your eye when your words say confidence, but your soul screams doubt. They remember what you forgot you even said. They see patterns in people before people see them in themselves. Why? Because while everyone else was desperate to be understood, the quiet one studied understanding itself. That's why when they speak just once, it lands harder than 1,000 empty conversations. It doesn't matter that they don't say much. What they say is unforgettable. Their words hit different because they weren't rushed. They were refined, forged in thought, tempered in patience. And it's not just what they say, it's how they say it. Calm, controlled, collected. There's no need for raised voices when you carry truth. No need for aggression when you carry certainty. The quiet ones don't need to be aggressive because confidence whispers while insecurity screams. And here's the truth that no one wants to admit. We fear what we don't understand. And we don't understand how someone can hold so much power without showing it. We don't understand how someone can command a room without saying a word. We don't understand how someone can stay calm while others unravel. That's why they unsettle us. That's why they're underestimated until they're not. Until they make a decision, until they show you just how much they were holding back. Until you realize they knew more than they ever let on. Until you look back and see every sign you missed, every moment they saw through you and said nothing. Because silence isn't consent, it's calculation, it's strategy, it's self-mastery. You thought they were ignoring you, but they were studying you. You thought they didn't have a plan, but they were 10 steps ahead. You thought they didn't care, but they just didn't waste their care on the unworthy. And when the time comes and they finally act, it's precise, it's effective, it's devastating, because it's built on knowledge, not impulse. While you were burning energy trying to dominate, they were conserving theirs to finish the game in one move. The quiet person doesn't play for moments. They play for legacies. They're not after attention. They're after leverage. They don't care about making noise. They care about making history. And here's what makes them the most dangerous of all. They don't need anyone to lose in order for them to win. They don't come for revenge. They come for evolution. They rise quietly, without announcing, without approval, without applause. And because of that, no one can stop them, because no one sees them coming. Their success isn't explosive, it's inevitable. Their power isn't dramatic, it's permanent. And all of it comes from their ability to embrace what most fear: silence, stillness, solitude. the uncomfortable spaces where the ego dies and the soul speaks. The quiet person doesn't avoid those spaces. They live in them. They thrive there. And when they come out transformed, wiser, sharper, stronger, and you don't even know it until it's too late, until they make a move that shifts everything, until they speak one sentence that rewrites the narrative, until their calm dismantles your chaos, until their truth exposes your game. And then suddenly, everyone pays attention to the one who never asked for it, because now they see what was always there: power, control, precision, depth. It was never loud, but it was always lethal. They weren't silent because they had nothing to say. They were silent because not everything deserves a response. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every insult requires retaliation. And not every moment is the right moment to show your hand. The quiet person understands this better than anyone. They've seen what happens when people speak too soon, act too fast, and reveal too much. They've watched loud men lose power because they couldn't control their emotions. They've seen manipulators expose themselves simply because no one interrupted them. The quiet one knows when you're still, they show themselves, all of them, their lies, their fears, their motives. You don't have to uncover it. They unravel on their own. That's the advantage of silence. It makes people uncomfortable. It forces their mask to slip. And in that space, where others squirm, fill the air with noise, defend themselves without being attacked, the quiet one sees clearly. This isn't apathy. This is dominance. Dominance of the self. And there's no force stronger than a person who has mastered themselves. A person who doesn't react out of insecurity. A person who doesn't speak to fill a void. A person who isn't ruled by the urge to be understood, accepted, or admired. Because when you don't need anything from anyone, you can't be controlled by anyone, and that's the root of danger, not in the threat of violence, but in the refusal to be manipulated, in the ability to walk away without looking back, in the strength to hear lies and feel no need to correct them, in the discipline to see betrayal and not respond with vengeance, but elevation. The quiet person isn't interested in evening the score. They're too focused on rising above it. That's why people can't figure them out. That's why they whisper about them, speculate about them, watch them in confusion, because the quiet one operates outside the emotional system that others are trapped in. While most people are predictable, triggered by ego, pride, insecurity, the quiet one is unpredictable. You can't provoke them. You can't pressure them. You can't pull them into your chaos. They are immune to the noise because they've trained in silence. They've suffered alone. They've won battles that no one saw. And now they carry something rare, inner stillness, a presence so grounded, so steady, that it shakes the unstable without ever raising a voice. This is what makes them powerful, not just what they know, but what they choose not to say, not just what they've done, but what they've walked away from, not just how they move, but how they refuse to be moved by anyone else. The quiet one doesn't have to chase power. They are power, but the kind you don't see until it's too late, the kind that's already reshaped the game before you knew it started. And it's not because they're hiding. It's because they understand something deeper. Real transformation is done in silence. Growth doesn't announce itself. Healing isn't loud. Strength is never theatrical. And when the time comes to act, the quiet one doesn't hesitate. They make one move, and it's the last one needed. Because when you've observed long enough, You don't guess. You know. You don't wonder. You decide. You don't try. You strike. The loud ones exhaust themselves, proving they're strong. The quiet one simply is. And that kind of strength, it's not common, it's not comfortable, and it's definitely not safe for anyone who mistook silence for softness. They don't announce when they're done with you. They don't slam the door or scream for closure. They don't demand apologies or stage confrontations. They just disappear from your games, your chaos, your influence. And by the time you realize what's missing, it's too late. Because when the quiet one leaves, they don't just walk away. They erase the version of themselves you thought you knew. The version that tolerated, that listened, that waited. That version no longer exists. What's left is someone transformed, hardened, sharpened, elevated. And nothing is more terrifying than the realization that they never needed you. They chose to be there, and now they choose not to be. That's the final act of a quiet person. Not revenge, not noise, just distance, cold, unwavering distance. Because silence is the most brutal ending. No explanation, no justification, just absence. And in that absence, people hear the echoes of everything they ignored, every warning, every moment of grace. Every time the quiet one gave space instead of punishment. Every time they forgave instead of exposed. Every time they held back when they could have destroyed. And suddenly, all those moments become haunting. Because now they realize the quiet one was never weak. They were merciful. And mercy has an expiration date. That's the danger people never see coming. The quiet one is not loud, but they are final. Their decisions aren't dramatic, but they are irreversible. When they're done, they're done. And when they rise without taking you with them, because they know who they are now. They know what they offer. They know what they'll never settle for again. You had access to them once. You won't get it twice. That's not pride, that's power. The quiet person doesn't hold grudges, they hold standards. And once you violate them, they don't fight you, they delete you. Not from hate, but from clarity. And the more they heal, the quieter they get. Because peace doesn't perform. Wholeness doesn't shout. True power doesn't need to convince anyone, it simply exists. And it changes everything. So the next time you see someone sitting silently, don't confuse it with weakness. Don't assume they're passive or timid or lost. They might just be dangerous, not because they'll hurt you, but because they'll outgrow you without warning, because they'll walk away without explanation, because they'll never need you to know they won. They'll just live like they did. And you'll feel it in the silence they leave behind.